there are all kinds of theories about how the internet and social media and all that stuff is causing all kinds of issues in the people, whether it's political divisions and all kinds of social media addictions and whatever else nonsense. And then there's all the other stuff that happens on the internet websites, all the social media platforms that is bad, like all the censorship and whatever else, who cares, cancel culture and all that. So everything that's like wrong with the way people use internet, basically. So there are all kinds of these ideas. Now, it is true that political divisions and such are not really caused by the internet. There are deeper issues in the society. Perhaps internet could be playing a role in that, but the cause of political issues is not really the internet. You can't really blame the internet for that because, well, there have always been political issues in the history of society, so the internet could just be making it worse or something. But anyway, there are all kinds of theories about how the internet causes whatever. There are all kinds of theories, like people talk about like echo chambers and all that. Like, there are all kinds of theories like that. So yeah, who knows if the theories are true or not? They are theories, but in any case, this does point to the fact that there may be something wrong with the way the people use the internet. Indeed, and all the things the other things I mentioned, like the social media addictions and whatever, those are, of course, still a problem. And here's the thing. I think there might be at least a partial solution to this big problem of the social media platforms. And I don't know if it's gonna like save the world or anything, but it would make things better perhaps. The solution might yet be quite useful. Because think of it this way, the internet itself is just a network that connects computers to other computers. So any computer on the internet can connect to any other computer on the internet. So it's basically just a network that connects computers. So this design does not inherently necessitate a centralized server to which everyone connects. That is not needed. It is the way things are for the most part done these days, but that is not the only way things can be done. And I propose to you in this speech that that is not the way things should be done, but instead people should take advantage of the very nature of the internet, the capability to connect any computer to any other computer. So peer-to-peer style communications is what I propose. Specifically, because these centralized servers, they are run by companies who need money, and then they get money through all kinds of nefarious means. They collect the people's data and sell that data, and that is a massive violation on privacy and all that stuff. So that's of course evil and wrong. But then there are all the algorithms also on the servers that feed the people all kinds of weird nonsense. So all kinds of, like, there are algorithms, they distort people's views and whatever. The algorithms specifically recommend all kinds of things that inspire anger in the people, because that keeps them more engaged with the platform, the website, the specific social media platform in question. And that's of course like it has a negative effect on the people when they are constantly angry and screaming at the screen, because there are some anger-inducing content on the screen that the algorithms on those websites, they specifically promote that stuff. You know, there are all kinds of problems like that. And these all of these sorts of problems, including the other problems like censorship and things like that, they all come down to the fact that there are these specific centralized servers that everyone connects to, these few big platforms. They are basically the gatekeepers to the internet as the people use it. So basically, the conception of the internet that many people would have is just those few platforms. So those few platforms are the gatekeepers to the internet. In those people's minds, of course. And it is indeed to that specific kind of internet, those social media platforms, indeed. Those few companies are those few companies are the internet, basically, for the people who only use that sort of stuff, only those sorts of websites. And that is, of course, a big problem. And it is also totally unnecessary. We can get rid of the dependence on big tech companies to provide all the internet services. It is possible because the internet is just a network that connects computers to other computers. So there are programs and tools available on computers that can connect to peer-to-peer networks where people can communicate with each other peer-to-peer. There is no reliance on a centralized server. There are specific programs like RetroShare, which implement a friend-to-friend network, which is a specific style of a peer-to-peer network. I have a separate speech explaining how that works. And there are all kinds of other peer-to-peer networks out there and software, so really, I say people should start using peer-to-peer communications software exclusively for the most part, because we don't want, or rather we shouldn't want, to depend on the big tech companies, a few centralized platforms. Using peer-to-peer software would get rid of many of the problems, if not the most of the problems, with the centralized servers. If you are communicating directly with your friends in a peer-to-peer network and other people through your friends in a friend-to-friend network, then there's no such thing as censorship because there's no centralized server that can censor anything. So big problems like that go away instantly. Also, there's no violation of privacy or kinds of data collection because you run the software yourself on your own computer. You don't connect to any external server that collects everything that you do on the server. No, you run the software on your own computer. So as long as the software is free software, free as in freedom, Libre software, then you control the software. And when you control the software, and you can see the source code, and you can see that it doesn't spy on you, then you are safe. Your data is not being collected. And that's good. We can avoid the data collection and the surveillance that way. But also, now that there is no company that needs to make money by data collection and selling the advertisement stuff and whatever else, who knows, data brokers selling data to the data brokers and they sell to the government and whatever. So that's the privacy stuff. But also, now that the monetary issue has gone away, because there's no company that needs to make money, because you just run the software on your own computer. So the only relevant monetary expense is the electric bill that you have to pay for running the computer, basically. So now that the monetary issue has gone away, now there's no need for all kinds of algorithms that keep you on the platform. There's no need for an algorithm that feeds you anger-inducing content so that you stay on the platform, because there's no platform that you're staying on except the network. And you don't need to have any reason to stay on the network. No company benefits from you being on the network, the peer-to-peer network. So there's no need for an algorithm that keeps you in the network. You can go to the network, you can communicate with your friends when you feel like doing that. And then you can stop when you feel like stopping. There's no eternal scrolling away, looking at a new thing one after another. There's none of that because there's no algorithm. You just look at the stuff you want to look at. Depending on the style of peer-to-peer network you use, you might see different things. And different services you connect to might provide you with different things. So there will be still everything available. You will still see everything you want to see, everything that people make available for you to see. So there's not gonna be any problem with finding what you want. You can still find everything. There's just no need for any algorithms. So now we've reduced many of the problems. No weird censorship stuff, no data collection, surveillance and all that stuff, no weird algorithms, and no any other kind of social experiments that those big tech companies may be doing. Those Facebooks and whatever, they do their experiments on the population. All kinds of psychological experiments, they do that stuff. None of that would be the case, because all you are doing is running a software program on your computer that connects to the internet, where there are other people, and it connects to those other people, and then you're just sharing data, basically, transferring data. So, this would reduce a lot of the big problems that are present in the way people use the internet. Because, like I've said, none of this is necessary to the internet. These centralized services, centralized servers, they are not necessary. The internet wasn't designed to require a centralized server that everyone has to connect to. No, everyone can connect to everyone else. All the users can connect to each other. So, the centralized server is fundamentally the root cause of all of these issues. Like all of them, basically. It's just the cause of everything. All the bad that is specific to the internet and the way people use it. Now, of course, problems that are outside of the internet, in the physical world, and then they just manifest in the internet because that's what people discuss, because they discuss the real world in the internet. The physical world, I should say. They discuss the physical world in the internet, so of course the problems of the physical world are going to be discussed on the internet naturally. But those are not specific to the internet. So, all the problems that are specific to the internet, specifically caused by the presence of the centralized server that everyone connects to, those issues can be resolved. That problem can be fixed. That's not a problem that needs to persist. Basically, computers are just a new thing. Going back just a few decades into the past, there weren't any computers for the general public. And of course there were computers, but the general population didn't use computers. Just a few decades ago, and there most certainly wasn't any internet. Going back just some 100 years, there weren't even a concept of computers to the general population. Some people might have imagined something perhaps, but there wouldn't have been any computers anyway. Maybe. Well, not anyway, for the general population, but that's the important thing. That's specifically what I'm talking about, the people, the general population. And like, it's a very short period of time, is what I'm trying to say, is that computers are very new. And because they are very new, people might mistakenly believe that this is the way it has to be. That because this is the way things are done right now, that there are these centralized servers that everyone connects to, then this is the way it has to be done. And this is the way it will always be. But that is not the case at all. By far, no. That is not the way things need to be. And it is not the way things should be. We should try to use peer-to-peer communication software, because it solves the problem. It fixes the root cause of all of these issues. So, the internet itself, because it's a new thing, people might mistakenly believe that it's the only way to do things, the way it's done, but the way things are done now. But this is just the way things happened. There came a new technology, something that people hadn't seen yet before, and then some people just took that and started using it in a certain way. But that's not the only way. And I say we should refuse to use it in such a way. Refuse to use centralized servers, centralized services like that. Refuse to use the social media platforms. And if nothing else, then there might be some solutions to this problem that could be done. Perhaps it could be made I don't know if it's really useful to make it illegal to make such centralized services, but something should be done. Something needs to be done to fix this problem, because it can be fixed. This is not inevitable. The centralized server that does all the evil, it's not inevitable. It can be avoided. So whether that should be done through legislation that makes big tech style companies that host these services, these centralized platforms, social media platforms, whether that's made illegal with legislation or something else is done, whether the users themselves decide to not use those platforms anymore and start using peer-to-peer software instead. However that's achieved is not the point. The point is that it should be done. We should get rid of the big tech companies hosting their centralized servers, their social media platforms. Just eradicate them, remove them. They don't need to exist. There's no need for those sorts of things to exist at all. There is still a purpose for centralized servers, and they should still exist, but just for a different purpose, for different use cases. What I'm talking about specifically is the sort of use that people have for a social media, what they do on a social media. Specifically the social media use. Those sorts of social media websites, they should be eradicated, all of them, each and every one. And people should use peer-to-peer software on their computers to communicate with each other. That's the way things should have done from the start. But unfortunately, some people just showed up with their centralized servers and they became very popular. And then that became basically the de facto way of doing things, unfortunately. But it doesn't need to be, and there's nothing that actually makes that necessary. That's just the way things happened. That's just something that some people did. Some people saw an opportunity to get some money and spy on the people. Some people saw an opportunity for that, and they took an advantage of it. They saw the new technology, and they recognized that it can be used to do all that evil stuff. It can be used to make a centralized server that surveils the people and collects their data, and it generates this choke point where some few people have the control over everything. All the communications between people and all the information, sharing information, basically everything that is done on social media, which is a lot of stuff. It's a lot of important stuff. People's communications and ideas are shared and everything. Ideas and information, everything is shared on the social media. Culture too. Social media is very important in that sense, or rather what people do on the social media is important. The things that are done on social media. And a few people, a few big tech corporations have total control over all of that. And that is very dangerous. And it needs to end. They just saw an opportunity that this technology can be used to do that. And they took it and they did that. They abused the technology, basically, to do that. But just, that's not necessary. It can be avoided. We can stop it. Because the technology, the internet, it doesn't need centralized services. People don't need a centralized social media platform to connect to share their ideas and information and culture. That's not necessary. The centralized server is not necessary. You can communicate directly with all the other people. Peer-to-peer software is the way to go. Right. So that's that for this speech. Thanks for listening. Until next time, bye.